morning, everybody, and my name is Alicia Coad, and I am actually re-recording my talk that I gave last Friday because it didn't record. So if you've already heard this talk last week and you're watching it on the recap and you're thinking, hang on, she seems to be saying different things, I do apologise, but I will do my best to keep it as similar as it was last week. So I want to talk to you today about mystery shopping. First of all, who am I? Well, my name's Alicia, as I've said. I have been a schools marketing director, now do consultancy with quite a few schools. I have 3 children who go to 2 different schools. I'm a school governor, and I did work with AMKIS for several years, overseeing their mystery shopping, or certainly being very heavily involved with it. I have probably mystery shopped or been involved in mystery shops of around 100 schools, and they range from large boarding schools with lots of facilities to some tiny prep schools. And throughout all of this, there are lots of things that remain the same, as well as lots that are very different. So what I want to do today is I want to talk to you about mystery shopping, why we might do it, what we need to consider, and how we will do it. So to me, there's 3 key reasons why a school should conduct a mystery shop. And you can see I've got 3 different faces on there. So starting with the sad face, this doesn't happen as much as it used to, actually, I'm pleased to say. And this is when a school comes to you and it knows it's got a problem and it wants that problem to be externally evidenced. The best or worst example I can give you is a mystery shop a colleague of mine did, and it was a school in London. They arrived by tube, so it's the only detail I'm giving. Covers quite a lot of schools, as we know. And she arrived and it was raining, and she got there 10-15 minutes early. She went into the reception and she said who she was, and they said, oh yes, you're here for 2 o'clock. And then they said, could she wait outside? And this was pre-COVID times. And when she said, please, can I wait inside? It's raining. She was told no, she would be a distraction. So that's obviously quite an extreme example. And that was an example where the school was aware that there was a problem. So moving quickly on to the middle picture, and this is a reason that we do get asked about quite a lot. And this will be where the school just wants somebody to have an external voice and tell them what they already know. So the big classics, there's 2 main ones. One is that the admissions team are completely overrun and need additional support. So they want that feedback to say, oh, well, I had to wait a week for somebody to get back to me. And you know, actually the other school down the road got back to me really quickly. So you're behind the ball. That's one reason. And the other is waiting rooms. If a school thinks that they want a new furniture, new lick of paint in their waiting room, which is a regular request, but it often isn't seen as a priority. One point I always make about this, and I will talk about it a bit later, is almost every hotel you visit in the country, the nicest part of that hotel is the reception area. And there's a reason for that. There's a wow factor on arrival. So that's another reason. And then the reason that makes me most happy is those schools who are doing it as best practice. And this, to me, is the reason why everybody should ask somebody to come and go through the prospective parent experience. It's all about best practice. There's always room for improvement. That doesn't mean what you're doing isn't already fantastically good. What it means is your school has evolved. Every school evolves, new members of staff, new buildings, new curriculum, and you need to make sure that that prospective parent experience is reflecting all that is happening. Now, the other reason that I sometimes get asked about is going to mystery shop competitors. It's not something that we do here at the Independent Schools Portal. Statistically, there's over 1,500 independent schools in the UK. What are the chances that the one down the road is doing that thing that you should be doing? Equally, we've worked with so many schools. If you want tips on how you can improve, that's something we can help with. I also think as a sector, we need to be collegiate. We need to work together. We need to focus on ourselves. You know, it's all about what can you do better, not what the school down the road is doing. Because a mystery shop normally comes up with ideas for improvement. Well, you don't need to know how the school down the road can improve. That's not of interest to you. You'll see there that I've also put a pound sign. And this is because sometimes people will want us to mystery shop other schools to find out if they're offering large discounts. Now, this isn't something that we like to talk about in the sector. And it's also very difficult because, you know, parents tell you things and you have no way of verifying what they may be saying. The one thing I would say when it comes to finance and it comes to fees is it's your decision. It's your choice. If you want to give lots of discounts, that's your choice. If your bursar and governors are happy with that. Equally, if you don't want a discount at all, again, entirely your choice. The one point I would make though, is that make sure all those who are involved in the admissions process know what the actual situation is. I'll give a quick example. My sister-in-law, and I've got 9 sister-in-laws, so again, I'm not ruling it down that much. She was interested in 2 schools, School A and School B. She wanted her children to be weekly boarders, and they were UK based. She wanted them really to go to School A because School A was her favourite school. She was an alumni. It was where she wanted her children to go. However, they were going to struggle with full fees. She approached the school and was told in no uncertain terms there were 0 discounts available. She didn't qualify for a bursary. She had 3 children who would all weekly board, but there were no discounts. And yes, they might manage to get a scholarship, but that was it. She asked, could she speak to the bursar? Was told no. Asked, could she speak to the head? Was told no. At the other school, School B, she was told, well, we don't give discounts, you won't qualify for a bursary. However, you know, we are quite practical and pragmatic, and why don't you come and have a look around the school and see what you think and get into that conversation. So she went, she looked around the school, and the school were very open, and this resulted in her getting a slight reduction in the fees. So she'd written off School A. However, I told her to go back and to write to the head's PA and explain the situation. When she did, School A did have some flexibility. It was just that the people who had been giving the messages hadn't been delivering them. So just be careful. If you do offer discounts, you're not going to say to people straight away on the phone, oh yes, there could be a 10% discount available. But equally, if people do ask, dig a bit deeper, you know, what is the actual situation here? What is going on? Rather than having perhaps a complete carte blanche no, because you may find that you're losing pupils, and the only reason you're losing them and they're going to another school is because they've not had that conversation with your head. So moving on to the mystery shop, and one of the things I want to look at first of all is the pros and cons of whether you tell people that you're mystery shopping or not. And this is quite an interesting one. Normally when we start on the call, I would say 80% of people don't want anyone to know the school's been mystery shopped. By the end of the call, this normally falls to about 50-50. So let me quickly talk to you about the pros. The pros of a mystery shop is that you are helping embed a culture where pupil recruitment is important. All teachers get their lessons observed because that's important. Why would the prospective parent experience not be observed? You know, you're saying to your staff, you're saying to your teachers in common room, this is important to us. We want to make sure we are getting this prospective parent experience right. And that's a really, really strong message. And it can also have a real positive impact on staff who perhaps might walk down corridors, see people who they think are on visits, and they may not smile at them, they may not engage with them. And once they realise how important this is, not every member of staff, but you will find that there will be members of staff who make more of an effort to say, oh, hello, what are you looking at today? You know, what age are your children? Or at least just a friendly smile. And it just embeds that idea that actually, as a teacher, helping with the recruitment is really, really important. And we're not asking you to do something hugely out of your comfort zone or different. We're just asking for a friendly smile so that they have a really good impression of the place. The other good reason is that it gives clear transparency. We are not mystery shopping to find out what is wrong with your school. We are mystery shopping to help you and to help you develop and improve. And the reason that it's done as a mystery shop is it's very, very difficult to get genuine feedback from prospective parents. If they're joining your school, they're going to be polite. They don't want to be rude about their future school, where they're hoping to have a long and happy relationship with you as the head and you as the registrar. Equally, if they don't join your school, they're not going to give that brutal information. They're not going to bother to take the time to give that feedback of, oh, well, we didn't like this, we didn't like that, because why? They don't care. They've moved on. They're at the school that they want to go to. So it's really, really hard to get this information. So that's why a mystery shop is important. And that's why being transparent, and you need to make sure people understand that's why you're doing it. The downside to telling people can be that it can cause stress. Some involved in the process can start panicking about who is the mystery shopper. I've put a picture there of a Michelin star restaurant. And the reason I do that is the old joke of, oh, best service, let's tell everybody we're an inspector. Well, in the school situation with mystery shopping, it works the opposite way. If the school knows that you're coming in, you can get into a situation where the staff are spending so long looking at each individual inquiry and visit that they're not engaging properly with that family about what they need. So that can be another reason why you may not want to tell people. So assuming you've decided that you're going to have a mystery shop, and whether you're telling people or not, the next thing we need to do is understand why you're doing your mystery shop, and we need to build the parent profile. Now, this isn't a marketing talk, and we've got lots of brilliant marketing talks from our day-to-day. However, I am going to briefly talk about the dreaded funnel. And if we are mystery shopping, the parent profile has to fit a profile that you are already managing to get through your gates. And the reason that I say this is we have had incidences, particularly where schools have gone co-ed, where they'll say, well, we're not attracting any boys at all. Can we have a mystery shop parent of 2 young boys? And the answer to that is, yes, of course you can. However, the work needs to be done further up the funnel. If you are not attracting boys to come and look around your school, you need to work on your awareness. You need to work on your top level marketing. So when it comes to mystery shopping, we're looking at these people who've already come into the building. So we need to be the profile of somebody who you are already managing to attract, because otherwise the work that needs to be done further up the funnel. So moving on to the actual mystery shop. Well, the first thing that we do is we do some research. We don't do a full website audit, because that's not what we're here for. We're acting like a parent, and a parent is no doubt on lots of different social platforms, so they will look for you within those platforms. A few things that happen time and time again that I will raise now for those of you to look at, whether you're having a mystery shop or not, is first of all your Instagram, Facebook, Twitter accounts. Nearly every school has an old account that's no longer used. And you might think that this doesn't matter. However, as a parent, when you type in, say you're in Twitter and you type in the name of the school, it doesn't always throw up the account that you, as the marketeer who knows the official account, expects it to throw up. So just be really mindful, because what you can often find is you might have had a brilliant head of hockey who was doing loads of posts, really great feed, and they've left, and the new head of hockey hasn't taken it on. And that makes the school look like you no longer do hockey. So just do keep an eye on what other things are out there and whether they're all still relevant. The other thing to bear in mind is that people are normally we spend so much time on these platforms now that people are searching from within. And what I mean by that is they're not necessarily going to your website to find your YouTube channel or find your Instagram. And certainly postcodes, and we'll come on to this when we talk about first impressions, but I don't know how many of you, when you're going somewhere, do you go onto the website of the restaurant or the hotel or school to find the postcode, or do you put it into Google? And I suspect that the answer is the second one. So just be mindful, the number of schools where the Google postcode takes you to a sports field, a boarding house, or somewhere slightly up the road. And this can have a real knock-on effect for a first impression, because people arrive on the back foot slightly confused. So if we come on to the actual visit, we're going to talk about first impressions, the tour structure, the length of the visit, and then finally the follow-up. So moving on to the first impressions, the information sent ahead of time. This is the one area where I feel that schools have taken a backward step. Excuse me. In the old days, you would be sent a very nice, expensive, glossy prospectus. Now I understand exactly why we've moved away from that, because we've had the websites. You would have also quite often had a handwritten note of a map with lots of arrows showing you where you needed to go, because this was done by a human being. Now we seem to have moved to a situation where the assumption is everything's on the website, and therefore you get almost nothing. It can be as little as a perfunctory email saying, "Thank you for your visit. We look forward to meeting you at 9:30 on X date." Now, a couple of things with that. It's a boring word email. It's not reflecting your luxury product that is an independent school, nor is it reflecting your branding. Equally, you probably have a really, really lovely campus map. However, is that very helpful for somebody arriving who's never been to the school? If you're a large school, the chances are you've got more than one car park, and they may well be labelled on this map. But for me, how do I know which one I'm going to? And the other thing to say is the number of schools that you drive into, and then there's a fork in the driveway, and you don't know which way to go. Now, for those of people who've been driving in, day out, who are mainly parents and staff, you go on instinct. But looking at this from the eyes of somebody who's never visited before, you'll be very surprised as to how many car parks and buildings there might be before you get to the main area. So if you haven't got signage, or your signage could be better, make sure you're putting this in your information ahead of time. Equally, give people a little bit of information about what happens when they arrive. You know, I've been to schools, one school where it was a nursery where I was doorstop. They wouldn't let me in through the front door until they'd seen some ID. It was ridiculously over the top. Equally, I've been to schools where you walk straight in, not a safeguarding issue because the receptionist is there. But again, that's felt a bit disconcerting, just walking in without speaking to anyone. I've buzzed on gates where they've said, "Come in," but then I've gone through the gate and I've not driving and I've not known where to go. I've had to have my photo taken for computer systems. Your arrival will be very different in your school to another school. So just make sure people know, so they're not on the back foot, so there's no surprises for them. So they're immediately in a good mood. And then we come on to the waiting room. Now, I know I spoke briefly about the waiting room slightly earlier. Boxes. The number of waiting rooms I've been in that are absolutely beautiful. They've got beautiful artwork, beautiful expensive furniture, maybe roaring fireplaces. And then in the corner is a pile of cardboard boxes. Now, it may be that there is nowhere else for deliveries to go, but can that be looked at? Because the catering deliveries don't come to this area. Or can you have a routine that the boxes are moved by somebody at a certain time, or can they be screened off? Because it's really quite disappointing that all your hard work and effort, maybe fresh flowers on the registration desk, is ruined by a pile of boxes in the corner. And then the final one, parking. If you haven't got parking, there is nothing you can do about it. I appreciate we cannot magic up parking spaces. However, you can let people know that ahead of time. You can say, "Oh, we haven't got any parking on site because we're a central city school. However, there is parking on X, Y, and Z roads. You can park there all day." If you have got parking, then and you have reserved a space, please make sure you let them know that the space is reserved for them. The number of schools I've been to as a mystery shopper, and there's been a traffic cone and it said reserved, and I've thought, "Oh, I can't park there." So if you can, make sure they know, and if you can add the name, even better. Makes you feel welcome from the outset. It makes you feel that these people are really looking forward to seeing you. And just on that, if you have got a system where people are buzzing in and all they're literally doing is letting people in, maybe have a word and say, actually, we are expecting a visitor at 11. Can you make sure that you ask them who they are and say, you say, is that Mrs. Whoever? We're really looking forward to seeing you. Because it can be quite off-putting when you buzz and you're just let in, because for you as somebody who's never been there, you don't really know what you're being let into. As I say, if we equate it to a hotel, that wouldn't happen. So I think that's something to bear in mind. And now I want to talk about the tour, because I think the tour, again, is something that over time hasn't changed that much. And the world has changed so much post-COVID that this is a time for your tour to really up its game. So I want to look at how we support your head, or support you if you are the head, and how we adapt to your strengths and your visitors, because people want personalised experience. This is in this modern day world. So you can see there, I've put up a picture of scaffolding, and you might be thinking, well, what's this got to do with how does the tour process support your head? But I think it's very, very important. Every head is different, as we know. I've put up there the 16 personality types from Myers-Briggs, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with and can spot yourself on there immediately. And then I've got the more basic extrovert, introvert side at the bottom. The point I'm trying to make is that the type of head you have really does impact on how your tour should be structured. So I think that I'm going to use a generalization here of 3 different head types. And I'll just talk you through them briefly. Obviously, they're huge generalizations. However, I hope you'll see the point that I'm trying to make and are starting to see how this could work in your school. So the first is the charismatic head. The charismatic head is full of charm, charisma, energy, excitement. You go into the room and you hear them talk and you come out absolutely buzzing. Wow, this must be a wonderful place. Wow, what a great person I've just met. And you then realise that you know absolutely nothing about the school. You have just been talked at in a very engaging, generic way. You might have been told randomly about the netball tournament that they won yesterday, or about the Spanish teacher who's won an award, but you just had a chat that really you had no control over. You didn't ask any specific questions about your individual child, nor did you learn very much about the school in detail. The second head type is the detailed school head. And this is normally a head who knows everything about the school. So if you were to say to them, is there a bus from my village? They'd say, oh, yes, there is. And Mrs. Suchbody oversees that. If you were to ask what clubs there were after school, they would talk about the drama, the maths club, the coding club, etc., etc. They know every single club, which day it's on, which teacher runs it. They are a font of all knowledge on their school. And again, you come out of the room feeling really, really impressed, because wow, you know so much about this school now. Every question you asked got answered in detail, and down to how the food is catered for in school. It was brilliant. You're also experiencing information overload, and you've perhaps not got a feel for the sort of wider ethos of the school. We've then got what I would call the educational head, which is a silly name, but I can't think of a better one, because every head's educational. And this is somebody who, when you go and speak to them, it's very much thought leadership. It's all about their vision, how they see a good education, what they want for their pupils, what they want for their school. And again, this can be absolutely fascinating, and it can really, you can learn so much about the school and the way it's positioned, and you come out again feeling really, really happy. However, you've not learned anything about the school. You've just heard about the head's vision, which is important as the leader, that they have a vision that you subscribe and buy into. However, there's still lots of other information you now need to do. So the reason that I mention that is that I think these are things we need to look at when we're planning our tours. So we need to look at Do you get a pupil to give the tour, or do you get a member of staff to give a tour? A lot of schools have a very fixed view. They either have pupils or they have staff, but they never mix it up. And I would say mix it up, play to your strengths. If you've got a head who knows absolutely everything about the school and that's what they're going to talk about in their office, why wouldn't they take them on a tour of the school? And equally, if you've got a head who's talked very generically about their vision, then you might want them to have a tour with a member of staff the registrar or another member of staff who can give them all that detail. Equally, if you've been overwhelmed with information, a pupil tour can be fantastic. It's more relaxed. You get to know what the school is like. So this really is something that you need to work on, depending on what kind of head you've got, and also what other staff you've got. It may be that you've got a fantastic deputy head who you can roll out, or a head of department. So think about having them give the tour. And why wouldn't they? We don't have to do it the way we've always done it. Another thing to keep an eye on is the tour timetable. If you've got a head who talks and talks and talks, and then after the talk, they go on a tour of the school, you might want to switch this round. You might want to say, right, well, we'll do your talking at the end because we know that you're overrun and I don't want my sixth formers sat in the waiting area waiting for you. And then the role of the registrar, this will evolve depending on what your heads and pupils are doing. You want to give everybody a 360-degree process. So it's important that supporting role of admissions is picking up on whichever little bit the parent feels they haven't had access to, whether that's academics, whether it's pastoral, whether it's ethos. It's a really important point that you've got everything covered off. So I then want to talk about adapting to your school strengths. So I've talked about the idea that you might use a certain teacher because they're really good at giving tours. And have you got a certain classroom that's absolutely brilliant? I will name this school because it's a positive experience and it's where my son goes. So when we look around Sedbergh School, we were shown the geology classroom. So when I say finding the hidden gems, I'm talking figuratively and in this case practically. We were shown the geology classroom. It was unbelievable. It was a treasure trove of geological artifacts. And the head of geography was very enthusiastic. And the pupils showing us clearly had a brilliant relationship and adored this teacher who was just fantastic. So you have all got those in your school. Make sure people are meeting them. My son had no interest in geology, and to be honest, it's not really an interest of mine. However, I remember it because I was so impressed by the experience. So do just find those hidden gems and don't be afraid to change the tour when staff leave. If it was that you always went to visit the geology teacher, but he's now left, it doesn't mean the new geology teacher's bad. It just means that they're perhaps not that sort of hidden gem. So do make sure that you keep mixing it up. And then the other thing is, see, I've got a picture here of a dog, and this is a wellbeing dog. And this comes from a school that before my colleague went to visit it, the website was all about wellbeing. So they had a wellbeing dog, they had a wellbeing room, they had wellbeing embedded in the curriculum. It was a real USP on their website. However, on arrival at the school and after having the tour, there'd been zero mention of wellbeing. So just make sure that the tour is staying on message with what you're saying ahead of the tour, whether it's prospectus, social media, or website. And another example I've got of this is a school that I mystery shopped, where all my communication with the registrar was about the academics. It was very much, we need reports, we're an academic school, there'll be an entrance exam. And to the point that I was thinking, well, this isn't the right school unless my child is really, really academic. I should be looking at the school down the road. However, when I went to the school and I met with the head, I soon realised that, yes, it was an academic school, but it was also it was an outstanding school. It was outstanding at academics. It was outstanding at sport. It was outstanding at music. And the overall message from the head was about excellence. And when I said, I don't think my children are particularly academic, I would have them as sort of average, he was like, well, that's not that's not a problem. You know, you've said they're very sporty. This is a school where we want excellence in all areas. And that was very interesting, because had I not gone for the visit, I would never have found that out. And based on the information I'd had from the registrar and my interactions with the registrar, I wouldn't have visited that school. I only did so because I was doing it for the purposes of a mystery shop. So do make sure, it's a good opportunity to make sure that everybody is on the same page. Schools have evolved, and this is the thing with schools. They're evolutionary, they're not revolutionary. So these changes can happen over time, particularly in independent schools. Your turnover of staff might be quite low. So these things creep in, and nobody actually realizes the changes that have been made. So it's really important that you review your tour process and you review the feedback, so that you can check that the tour is actually reflecting the modern day version of your school, what it is now here in 2022. And then the other area I want to talk quickly about is adapting to your visitor. Personalisation. In the modern world, post-COVID, almost every school has some form of virtual tour on their website. So are you still using that? And if I've told you that my children aren't interested in sport and they're really interested in music, do I need to be taken on the 8-minute walk to the sports fields and the sports centre? They may be really, really impressive. However, am I that bothered? Could I have been given a link online to the virtual tour so I can see the swimming pool, I can see the gym? Equally, can I have more information on the areas I'm interested in? You know, can we go to the music block? Can I see the music, the drama suite? They might not be on your usual tour, but can you put them on there for me now I'm coming to visit you? And I think this is something, in this modern world, almost everything now is personalised. We have personalised prospectuses. We have, with Campus 24, you can have your own personalised website before you arrive. So why would the tour process not be personalised to what you want? I know there's a lot of matching of pupils goes on for tours. You know, if you've got a daughter who's into sport, you might be given a tour guide who's into sport. But I think we can do better than that. I think we can go further with our personalisation. And on this, the other thing to say is time. We live in a busy world, and people are used to having things as and when they want them. So ask people, how long would you like to spend at the school? I've been on tours with the school where from start to finish, it's taken 40 minutes. I've not met anybody except the registrar. I've been whizzed around the building and whizzed back out. And that was a recruiting school, I might add. Equally, I've been on a tour of a school where I was still there, sort of 2-3 hours later, which, you know, you could say that, oh, wasn't that wonderful, and that they were giving me so much time. But in all honesty, I was slightly bored by the end. I'd got information overload. I'd met too many people. I'd heard too much. So think about how long your tour is from start to finish, and think about how long the person wants to be for, and give them an itinerary before they arrive, so they're not on the back foot. If you're going to give them tea and coffee when they arrive, just sort of say arrival with refreshments. If you're going to be giving them a big tour, you know, make sure they know they might want to wear different shoes. So these are just little things to consider. And again, just to mention, I know this might sound like I'm telling you to suck heads, but if your pupils are giving tours, please, please, please make sure that they've been trained properly. I once went on a tour of a school. It was a prep school, 1 form entry, and I had these 2 delightful little Year 6 girls show me around. It took 45 minutes. They read every sign on the notice board. They showed me the contents of the bin. They even invited me into the boys' changing rooms. So please, please, please do not assume that because you've told the children to point out the notice boards, they realise that you're not meant to read every single word on it. It is something that I think happens more than you might think. And don't see time as a long tour and a long chat with the head always as a good thing. Ask your people, what do they want? equally on this, and we talked a little bit earlier about mixing your tour up and maybe getting somebody else to speak. And I think, meet the parents. And I think this is an important one. The number of schools where you phone up to arrange a tour, and certainly when I was doing a lot of mystery shopping, I didn't have huge amounts of flexibility because it would involve quite a lot of traveling. And that's not to say that wouldn't have been the same if I was a true relocator. And the number of schools that just couldn't fit you in because the head was out that day or something else was going on. So think outside the box. If somebody says to you, I can only make it next Wednesday in the morning, don't say, well, sorry, we can't do it. It's unlikely that they're a mystery shopper. The chances are they are a genuine person who happens to be in the area on that Wednesday. So bend over backwards for them. Say, oh, the head's not in, but you can meet the deputy head, or who in particular would you like to meet? So adapt it to your visitor. Then coming on to the follow-up. This originally was just going to be a photo of a phone. So this is another area where I feel that we've perhaps gone slightly backwards. Certainly what tends to happen now when you visit a school is you'll be told the next step. You'll be given a follow-up email, and then you'll normally move into an email bucket. So I've got a school that I mystery shopped 9 years ago now, and I still receive emails for their open day. That's fine. I haven't asked to unsubscribe. So, there's nothing wrong with that. And it's nice to have them. It's good for me to remember that they still exist. And whilst my children haven't gone there, it was a nice school and might recommend it to somebody else. No problem with that. However, where I feel we're really missing is with the phone. And these people are about to make a decision to spend a heck of a lot of money. Even if it's just a prep school with one child, we're still talking 70 grand. We could be talking up to £250,000. So picking up the phone to ask them how they found the day is a sensible thing to do. And it's not telesales, it's follow-up, it's customer service. Did you find everything out that you wanted to know? Have you got any questions? Is there anything more I can do for you? You're not haranguing these people. You're giving them a really good personalised experience, which hopefully reflects on the education that the child's going to get. So I really do think that a lot of schools have moved now into this email follow-up. And really, I would urge, go back, pick up the phone, ask people, what is it they still need to know? Would they like to come back in and meet with somebody else? Because this is a real opportunity here. And once those parents have made another decision, to join another school, it's unlikely that decision will change. We know, a bit like bank accounts, that in the majority of cases, once that school decision's been made, it doesn't change. So you need to fight for that decision. So do feel free to pick up the phone. People won't be cross. They'll see it as good customer service. They'll see it as, you're not ringing to say, I've not had your registration form. You're ringing to say, how was your tour? How was your journey back? Have you got any other questions? You'll hear from Lucy Barnwell. She talks about how she gave her parents a packed lunch to eat on the way to visit a competitor school. Some of you might think, what on earth? But again, just giving that real stellar customer service. So in summary, know the reasons for your mystery shop. Know why you're doing it. Be clear to common room, to governors, to the head. This is why we need a mystery shop. This is all about improvement. Make sure that your profile fits your parental brace. As I've said, there is no point having somebody do a mystery shop in the shoes of somebody who you're not yet managing to attract into the building. And then use the information productively. What tweaks, changes can you make for your school? And finally, is to say, really, it's all about best practice. That is why we are doing our mystery shop. So just before I close, I've got one quick slide here that I just want to put up here. And this is something that's come out recently from our mystery shops. We will often go and visit a school that is a recruiting school, and it needs more pupils in almost every year, except for 1 year that is full. So, for example, it might be year 5 is full, and all the other years have got lots of spaces. Now, currently in the UK, 58% of parents have more than one child. So I think you can probably see where I'm going with this. if you've got a year group that's full, this is going to have a knock-on effect on recruitment in other years, because parents quite often will want their children in the same school. So if year 5 is full, then there's child in year 3, it's no good to them. And this is something that we're seeing come out of mystery shops and feedback, parents saying, well, we wouldn't consider, to be honest, I wasn't really listening. I'd switched off because they announced that there were no spaces in year 5 and I want my children in the same school. And equally, if your numbers are really low and you're looking at collapsing a year group, maybe putting year 1, year 2 together, or year 2, year 3, and just think about that really, really carefully, because if that is a sticking point and it does put off quite a lot of parents, the chances are you don't just lose that one child, you lose 2, coming back to this 58% stat. So I raise that because I think it's an important point when you're having those conversations about classes for next year. It can sometimes seem, in a tough economic climate, the easy thing to do, the sensible thing to do, let's save the money, let's collapse the class. But just be mindful, if you are looking to grow, do you really want to have a class of 22? If 22 is the most you've had, can you stomach a class of 2 11s? Because you only need sort of 3, 4, 5 pupils to come in, and that's paid for itself. So I just wanted to raise that before I finished. So thank you for listening. As I say, this was a re-record. So to those of you who watched it live first time round, I apologise if what I'm saying seems completely different. Thank you. Bye.